We have to show through our actions the solidarity we're capable of, people might have been saying at the Columbia University International Students Conference in New York that fall of 1968, when we just found out that after months of demonstrations back in Mexico City, putting hundreds of thousands of people into the streets, the Mexican army had invaded the National University to quell the protests. Only no one there at Columbia was willing or able to decide what kind of action should be taken, not even whether to send a message of support to the student movement's National Strike Committee, something as easy as a card to a friend in hospital, victim of illness, assault, or accident. Sorry about your army. Get well soon. And I swear to God it must have been midnight by then, and there's Basta, my soon-to-be husband, getting up on the stage, and he's lost it, completely lost it. This man, I've given his new name in my novel for being so full of words, things about the unity of theory and practice, praxis and la coyuntura, that favorite naturally spoken Latin American left word, become the awkward conjuncture in English, and always, of course, there's la correlación de fuerzas in the class war. So I call him Sebastián and Itzel, so he could be basta, basta, basta. Enough, basta, enough, when anybody needed to shut him up. Only now the theoretical talk's all gone, and it's not even howdy fucks. The way he'd taken to mispronouncing folks on purpose just to see the looks on folks' fucking faces, but just calling everybody the equivalent of fucks in Spanish and meaning it. And here, in this short true-to-fact vignette from only 2 weeks before the massacre that gives its name to my novel's first volume, I'll start not just with quotes and phrases from the book, but the exact words of Itzel I, a Tlatelolco Awakening. Tlatelolco, the massacre of October 2nd, 1968. Because what else could Basta do inside tan grandísima desmadre, such a chaotic unmother, than mean it? Absolutely mean it. And besides, I promised this scene to my friend poet Wayman Chan because he asked me what the word pendejo, used so often with the force of asshole in Mexican movies and television, really means. So, and there's me following Basta up there, my first on-stage interpretation, and mostly what I'm getting to translate between chingada madre and hijos de la chingada is what could have been anyone's first long lesson on how to swear in Mexico, with its chinga puta madral, that's more or less a fucked whore motherload, of repeated expressions, only mostly it's pendejos, 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 he's saying, y no se me apendejen, among other variations on yet another, mostly, though not exclusively Mexican expression, with less of the fucker and more of the schmuck than cabrones, but still with the weight, if not the meaning, of asshole. Asshole and assholeries, and don't go all asshole on me, something much more freely used than its English equivalent, because just about anybody, except maybe Ignacia, Basta's mojigata wet cat of a mother, could easily ask, ¿Qué pendejadas son estas? What assholeries are these? Without batting an eye, so that I'll never have to even ask myself if pendejo has a specific meaning, as nobody ever mentions it, much less deconstructs it the way they do with chingad and its variants. You can start with Octavio Paz for that. He dedicates pretty much the whole of the labyrinth of solitude to it, and there's much more after that. There is no philosophy of mexicanidad to explain Pendejo's particularity, so it'll be a long time before yet another conference in the 80s does it for me, one full of Canadian and Chilean trade unionists I've been flown in to translate for in Winnipeg maybe, or Saskatoon, where I'm once more up on stage as the conference starts to wind down after about 8 hours without a decision on some important action or other being reached, and one of the Chileans, who, like all Chileans, never uses pendejo as any kind of expletive, wants to hurry things along and tells us all rather matter of factly, the Chileans, after all, have their fighting factions and their endless discussions too, that he doesn't want to spend all day tirándose de los pendejos. And no, it's not throwing the assholes, the idiots, the fucks. It's not even shooting at them in yet another meaning of tirar. This tirar is much more common. It's pulling. Pulling. But pulling what? All day pulling what? And suddenly I know there can only be one answer. It's pubic hair. It's got to be pubic hair. Between the pulling and the pending, that sense of hanging out at the edge of pendejo is a pubic hair. It's so obvious I should have seen it before, so that calculating quickly I go on, finish up, say, pulling on my short and curlies. All day, pulling on my short and curlies. And everybody who hasn't gotten it yet starts to laugh, harder perhaps than those who already have, because what I've said isn't an expression in English, not like if I'd just said jacking off, so it seems original, funny, not like for the Chileans for whom the expression's been just a bit of typical light-hearted profanity, though they do laugh harder to hear it in English, and all that combined laughter gives me just enough time before I have to start translating again to be carried back to Colombia into that other sea of faces, pushed into the moment when Basta says, no hay que apendejarse. Don't turn yourselves into pubic hairs. Don't do this. And I see all those students, all those activists in that room suddenly like that twisted, messy, matted, chaotic, pendejos, 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 turning into pendejos, into pubic hairs, and I start to smile myself, if not to laugh, as I wait for the speaker's next words in Winnipeg and wonder, too, if Basta ever saw them like that while looking out over the crowd at Columbia. If any Mexican actually knows where the words come from, or if it's long lost its original meaning, if all it has left for anyone is its weight of criticism and self-criticism. So that maybe I'll laugh out loud about it later when this other Canadian conference too is over, when I'm drinking wine and listening to folk songs with the Chileans and talking of the ubiquity of armies and of their artillery, of tanks rolling along streets and across campuses. And maybe, too, I'll tear up as I repeat it, pendejos, 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 pubic hairs, pubic hairs, pubic hairs, and tell them I've only just now realized what the word means, and they'll confirm it for me, these people for whom a pendejo is just a pendejo. And Mexico's pendejo is a huevón, even as I go on to tell them about Basta and Basta's name, and how that time at the Columbia Conference, between the theory and the profanity, Basta too will say basta, even basta, 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 more than once before he stops. But how what he will mostly be saying is, we can't argue. We have to do everything we can, take all the roads open to us, every last one. What the Chileans, too, as they combat the military dictatorship, will slowly be deciding they need to do. End the factionalism and do what needs to be done. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. Thank you. And to all the Chileans in exile who fought the dictatorship, and to those in Mexico who were in the movement, thank you. And of course, to all those who have seen Itzel into reality, thanks.